Hey everybody, welcome to my next installment of building a practice routine that fits into your life and makes you better. And in this episode we're going to talk about stylistic practice. So what is stylistic practice? Well, it's a practice-based routine where you're working on specific vocabulary of a style. So in this video we're going to use Chicken Pickin, which is part of a sort of country style, or if you're John 5, it's part of a rock style. By the way, John 5 is absolutely amazing at this kind of stuff, and brings that crossover from what was traditionally the sort of country technique, brings it into like metal, and he's shredding. It's absolutely amazing. Anyway, why does a style-based practice work? Well, it's giving you a sound to chase. It builds up your technique in a specific area and adds to a specific vocabulary for that specific style. So you really start to get some identity based on style when you start to do a stylistic practice. We're going to use Chicken Pickin in this one because it's perfect for breaking down technical stuff like hybrid picking, a little bit of muting, snap, and of course groove. So here's the actual lick we're going to use. Okay, so your routine structure should be breaking things into the actual micro techniques used. So break it down into hybrid picking, for example, and if you aren't familiar with the specific technical side of the whatever stylistic lick you're doing, then really start with the fundamentals on that specific thing. So for Chicken Pickin it's hybrid picking. If it's something like a two-handed tapping lick, then work on your legato and using your fretting hand to fret notes. If you're doing pentatonic licks, then make sure you know the pentatonic scales. Really simple stuff like that. The next thing you want to do is just work on the actual vocabulary within the style itself. So really working on licks and techniques that are specific to the actual style that you're working on. And then the third area I recommend is musical application, jamming over jam tracks or your favorite songs or whatever, or with band if you have a band. These kind of things are fantastic for really getting that vocabulary down, because once you start to utilize these specific stylistic techniques over actual music, that's when you start to find your own sort of voice with this kind of stuff. So let's do a little micro technique practice just now. So with this hybrid picking lick or Chicken Pickin lick, what's the very first thing that we need to work on? Well, it's hybrid picking. So that's the technique of using your pick and your fingers to play musical passages. In this particular lick, I'm going to break it down for you. So I'm using my third finger on my fretting hand on the third string on fret 3, and I'm going to play that note with my guitar pick. Then I'm going to slide to the 4th fret, and then I'm going to use my middle finger to play the 2nd string open, and then I'm going to use my pick again. So let's just do those notes. Okay, so that's a nice little 2, 3, 4. Nice little 4-note phrase to get you started. So there's some reasonably complex movements in there. I wouldn't say it's particularly difficult, but there's a lot to think about to start with. So just spend your time, 5 minutes a day, and this is the secret to building practice routine that fits into your life. Just do 5 minutes a day. If you spend 5 minutes just doing that, and it goes from not being able to do it to being able to pull it off reasonably well, that's 5 minutes well spent, right? So let's add the next part. Okay, so now I've added 2 more notes using my ring finger and my middle finger. Ring finger is playing the open E, and my middle finger is playing the open B. So let me play that again. Okay, so there's our next little micro technique, just taking that. Okay, now this lick is very specific, it's just one lick, but the technique that I'm using in my picking hand is applicable to many variations of this lick. So even though you're working on one thing, it doesn't mean that you always have to play that exact lick. So now let's take this lick a little bit further, and this isn't going to be that difficult. If you can do this first bit, then you can do the next bit. What I'm going to do is I'm literally going to put my second finger down where it wants to go on the 3rd fret on string 3 and play the same lick again but with a different finger. So to recap, 3rd finger, 2nd finger. Let me play that in time. So I'm literally doing the same thing twice, except I'm doing it with a different finger the second time. Now we're going to add in 3 more notes. Once I've done that second version of it with the 2nd finger, I'm going to play pick on the 3rd string, and then open E and open B. So that sounds like this. So there's your next micro loop or lick to work on. And there you go. Now you're chicken picking. So at this point, what you want to do is really just break it down into those sort of simple steps and build it up. And the next thing really is using musical application. So musical application is, I think, one of the most important parts. Once you've actually got the lick down, start practicing it over either a metronome, which is a good way to keep everything in time. I use a metronome to make sure that I don't speed up or slow down when I'm practicing these things. And then the second thing that I do, and more often than not what I almost go to immediately, is finding some kind of backing track on YouTube. In this case, if you're using this specific lick, try over a country groove in E, okay, and it'll work really great. So you can then start working on that with the backing track, and what happens is that whatever way you've practiced it, you need to then make sure that that fits musically with the backing track that you're playing over. So that might mean adapting the rhythm, playing it faster, playing it slower, playing it with a different feel. But if you've got the lick down, you should be able to adapt it, and it's going to start sounding really good over the backing track that you're playing over, and you're going to start to really hear some great results from that. So that's my next suggestion, is get some kind of musical application going and just see how that feels when you're playing, you know, over backing tracks, for example. Cool. So when you're fitting this into your actual life, I think, again, just to reiterate, you know, do these things for 5 minutes. 5 minutes is a good starting point. If you sit and focus on it, all you really need is focus and attention for 5 minutes, and you're going to start getting results. And of course, consistency. Do it daily. Do it every day for 5 minutes for a week, and I guarantee that you will be better at doing this kind of stuff than you were before. So let's have a look. I'm just going to play through this one more time and try and expand a little bit. Okay, chicken picking. So again, Chicken Pickin was just the vehicle for this specific video. Really what I wanted to talk about here was the stylistic aspect, so you can use the same techniques and strategies that I've talked about in terms of practicing, regardless of whether you're doing jazz, heavy metal, chicken picking, it doesn't matter. So I hope that was of use. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye for now.